Richard Petty is a past chairman and president of CPA Australia. He has been a professor at various leading institutions for many years, such as Hong Kong U, Macquarie University, and Stanford University. And he is also now the chairman of the Australian Chamber of Commerce Hong Kong and Macau. Professor Petty, thank you very much for coming on to Through the Eyes of Youth today.
Thank you, Matthew. It's my pleasure.
Many young people in Hong Kong have heard about all these various chambers of commerce in Hong Kong. There's the American one, the British one, the Canadian one, and so forth. So, what exactly does the Australian Chamber of Commerce do?
Well, much like our counterparts at the other chambers that you've mentioned, we seek to connect with our members and engage with them, understand what their imperatives are in terms of what they're trying to achieve in business in the region. And then as a chamber, we hope to represent them and help represent them in any event, so as to achieve their objectives in business in Greater China. So the chamber is the chamber for both Hong Kong and Macau,
yes.
And we have a large membership in each location, and a very large membership in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. Right. As the chairman of a large chamber here in Hong Kong, what do you think of Hong Kong's competitiveness going into the future?
Well, Hong Kong historically has been very competitive, and I'd like to think that going forward it will continue to be very competitive. And Hong Kong has a lot going for it. We have rule of law, we have dual and beyond language capabilities, we have a very diverse population of talents and people. Of course, our proximity to China is very important, and there is significant infrastructure that's being put in place presently to try and ensure the continued engagement with the region and the ability for Hong Kong to grow and prosper in terms of trade and development, including the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, the third runway that's being proposed for the airport and various other things. So I'm fairly bullish on Hong Kong's future prospects as a business centre.
Right. But, traditionally Hong Kong has been regarded as the gateway to China. But with the development of the Shanghai Free Trade Zone and the gradual internationalization of the renminbi, do you see these as big challenges to Hong Kong?
I think they're opportunities as much as they are challenges. China is opening up, and China is opening up to the rest of the world as well as to Hong Kong for business. But Hong Kong still has a preferred status and standing in relation to its dealings with China through CEPA and through other long-established mechanisms that give preferential treatment to Hong Kong businesses in many industries in many ways when dealing with China. And indeed, our members here in Hong Kong seek to leverage the platform that is Hong Kong and the stability that they find in Hong Kong and the developed business they find in Hong Kong into China. And many of our members have done that quite successfully over the years to develop sizable businesses throughout China. And this has led, in fact, to the development of the AusCham Greater China Network. So we're a founding member of that network, and there are other Australian chambers in China, in Shanghai, Beijing, and southern China, and so on. And as a network, we try to promote Australian business and promote the interests of our members.
Right. As I understand, recently the Australia and China signed a free trade agreement, and like any free trade agreement, it has its supporters and its opponents. What do you make of the free trade agreement?
Oh, it's a historic agreement. It really is a landmark in Australia-China relationships. I had the privilege of being in Canberra when the deal was announced. And saw President Xi talk to the agreement, as did Prime Minister Tony Abbott. And it really goes a lot further, I think, than many thought that it might. And it's a real credit to Trade and Investment Minister Andrew Robb in particular in terms of what they managed to achieve during what has to be said was a very protracted series of negotiations over, I think, about 10 years. But huge benefits for Australian business, but also for Chinese business, and huge benefits for our members that operate in service industries and that operate in some of the other industries, agricultural industries in particular, that are going to be key beneficiaries of the agreement. But the challenges remain. The challenges that were in place for Australian businesses hoping to do business in China haven't been removed in their entirety by the free trade agreement. The free trade agreement opens up new markets. The free trade agreement removes tariffs and therefore makes it easier, perhaps, for Australian companies to do business in China and vice versa.
Yep.
But China is a huge, huge place, and there's an enormous amount going on. And to understand China, one has to look at it industry by industry. One has to look at it as being a nation of regions, not a monolithic whole. And understanding China and the opportunities and challenges on the ground in China and where to enter and what the market strategy should be going forward for the companies. These are things that companies still need to grapple with.
Now, specifically, in terms of the free trade agreement, what are the benefits for Hong Kong?
Well, Hong Kong historically has been used as a location to do business not only in Hong Kong, but as a platform for doing business in China. And many of the Australian firms that are members of our chamber here have a presence here, and then they have offices in the rest of China, other parts of China.
Yes.
So for Hong Kong, greater investment in China should correlate with increased investment and activity in Hong Kong. There is at least a case that can be made for that. And with the opening up of the services market, with the opening up in particular, a lot of the professional talents are based presently in Hong Kong. There's an enormous concentration of bankers and accountants and lawyers and architects and medical professionals and you name it when it comes to the professional suite of occupations here in Hong Kong. And we believe that our members will find ways to harness the opening up aspects of the free trade agreement to find new opportunities in China and to, on the back of the FTA, grow the opportunities that already are there.
Right. Now, you seem to be quite optimistic about Hong Kong's prospects, but does the Occupy Central movement and Hong Kong's deteriorating relationship with Beijing worry you?
Oh, I'm eternally optimistic about Hong Kong. Been here 20 years, love Hong Kong, Hong Kong's home, and I'll remain optimistic about Hong Kong, and a very proud Hong Konger in that regard. I'd like to think that the relationship with Beijing and with China more broadly hasn't deteriorated too much, but I think that the jury is out in terms of what the present situation means for the longer term in bilateral relations between Hong Kong and China. I think that some of the events have been quite unfortunate and have certainly cast Hong Kong in a light that that's very interesting, and that the international community sees, it's got to be said, some positives and negatives also in terms of what's been happening in relation to Hong Kong. I hope, like many, that Hong Kong can move forward and that there is a constructive dialogue and engagement about what will be good for Hong Kong and something that's achievable for Hong Kong. I think it's really unfortunate that there hasn't been a platform for that debate that has been acceptable to both sides. Because one of the observations I would make is that there is a range of views about what the movement represents and what it means. And it does seem that anyone who says anything that is perceived as being contrary to the views of the movement that is for Occupy Central, anyone who says anything that's remotely different or perceived as being critical, whether it's intended or not, is demonised to a degree by elements of that movement, and that isn't helpful for anybody. It doesn't help the cause to shut down dialogue and communication. It's very important that Hong Kong has a meaningful engagement with China, and it's very important to understand that in many ways And ultimately, in the long term, in most ways, Hong Kong really depends on having a very good relationship with China for its continued prosperity and international competitiveness. And so I think the prevailing view in Hong Kong, certainly if one reads the social media feed and one picks up on the newspapers and so on, is that there is a range of views. But most people in Hong Kong are looking to the future, hoping it's positive, looking for reasonable outcomes, and have been somewhat disappointed by the more extreme actions that might have been taken at the fringe of what's been happening in the past couple of months.
Right. Now, final question. As a professor of several leading institutions for many years, if there is one advice, only one, that you can give to your students who are about to enter the workforce, what would it be, Professor Petty?
Be passionate about what you're doing. Love what you do. Because if you're going to work 9 to 5, 9 to 9, 24/7, whatever it might be, and you don't really believe in what you do and you don't enjoy what you do, it's going to be a very long and tedious journey.
Yes.
So be passionate about what you do. Figure out what it is you're good at and what it is that you really believe in and enjoy doing, and then commit to that and learn as much as you can.
Right.
And having done that, I think that success is practically guaranteed.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Well, thank you very much, Professor Petty, for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.